What is up, everyone? We are in my personal kitchen today and my home, and today is a huge celebration. For years, you guys have asked me, please show me this recipe and this recipe, and today I'm finally caving in, but for one reason only. We're celebrating 50,000 subscribers, and I can't think of a dish that's better to celebrate 50,000 subscribers with than the king, the absolute greatest dish in all of India, maybe biryani. And we're not just doing any biryani because there's many styles of biryani, right? Today we are going to do a dum style biryani inspired by Hyderabadi style biryani. We are going to go through all the process, all the steps. I'm going to show you some of the tips and techniques and tricks that I use to really build a delicious biryani. We're going to be working with chicken here today, but obviously there's a lot of variations. Before we get started, a couple of really important notes. Number one, and we're going to go quick. Number one, understand that biryani is very subjective to where you are. If you're in the north, this biryani is going to look different. If you're in Bengal, Kachi biryani looks very different than Hyderabadi biryani. And obviously Telapakati biryani looks very different than this as well. Everyone has small little tips and tricks and tweaks to making it theirs. This is a baseline. From there, build, and I'm sure in the comments you guys are going to give me a lot of tips as well. But here we go. Let's get ready. First things first, I want to go through some of the steps that I do, and I'm going to spell this out here so that we're getting into ingredients you guys know what we're working with. The quintessential first thing I start with is cutting onion because we want to make something called brista. And brista is basically what you would know as fried onion. The thing that we want to do with this is we want a nice fried onion that's going to layer the layers in between the rice and the meat and all of that wonderful stuff. There's a lot of steps that I'm going to highlight during the course of this. So as we're going through, don't worry, you can stop, rewind, and do all that as well. But we're going to start by chopping some onions and making brista. That is going to be our first step. Are you ready? Let's get to prep.
All right, so we're going to begin chopping our onion here. For this, I like to use red onion. Predominantly what you see in the subcontinent is red onion. Now, of course, there are other varieties. Red onion gives this kind of really rich, sort of pungent taste. They work great for frying. They're very flavorful. And a lot of this is accessibility, right? Food in the subcontinent differs so much because it's what people have access to. For our brista, I'm going to cut this on the thinner side. I don't need paper thin. I want a little bit of structure to them so that they can hold up to the heat. But really what I'm looking to do here is just a nice even slice that's going to cook great. The couple of really important tips here is we want to make sure that these onions are uniformed, but the next important tip is making sure to get all this done first. I like to get a lot of my mise en place done ahead of time so that when I'm going on to the next stage of cooking, it's already set and ready to go. To this pot, I'm going to add ghee. Traditionally, you get this beautiful ghee fried onion that works so well in biryani. If you don't have access to ghee, make ghee. Ghee is really almost irreplaceable in this step because of the deep, rich flavor that you get out of frying the brista. So make sure not to skimp on this. When you do this, you don't need a ton of oil. You want enough to basically cover the onions. And the next step is I'm temping this here. Right now I'm about 408 plus degrees Fahrenheit. Ideally what you're going to be searching for here is about 400 to 420-ish. Now that's very high. So what's going to happen as soon as you put in these onions, just like this, it's going to start to go and release all that water. So it's going to pop. So you want to slowly release the onions in, just like you saw me do there, and see how the oil temperature is kind of coming down there, and then I can start to add more. The reason I want a hot oil to start is the minute that these onions that are much colder hit, you'll notice the bubbling starts to go away, and then it takes that much more energy to bring the oil back up to a temperature, which I'm looking for about 350 degrees is really where I want to fry these onions in Fahrenheit. Again, this is a process that takes some time. What I'm looking for here is the various stages of onions. As you see me scoop that, you can notice that some of the moisture is starting to pull away from the onion. And that's a good first stage of an onion. The next stage is you're going to notice that that redness is starting to turn to a pink, and the onions are getting more malleable and soft. And that's another great stage. I'm looking for a much darker onion in this stage, so these are going to go for a while. Again, there's a difference between nicely caramelized dark fried onions and black onions that are burnt. That process happens very quickly, you'll see here. So when the onions are starting to really get to that style of brown, I want to pull them. Not here on this stage. This is where they're starting to turn. I know here I've got another minute and a half until these onions turn. This is a very important stage in biryani. The other thing is I'm going to save this ghee. I'm not going to throw this away when I drain these. I use this when I'm building the stages of biryani to put in between the layers. It's a beautiful onion ghee oil that is infused and delicious. Right about here, I'm constantly monitoring my onions because I know that they're about to turn, and I'm almost at the stage where I want to pull them because there's going to be some carryover heat. That's always important to know when you're frying onions. That carryover heat will slowly also continue to darken them. But I'm separating them. I'm keeping that wire spatula basically pushing those onions down. And really, they're just about there. This is where I like to say, okay, it's that final hit. And then that's where I'm going to pull them right about here because that carryover heat is going to continue to cook them. And then I put them on a paper towel on a plate. And remember, save all that beautiful ghee that's infused with that onion flavor. It is really great. Next thing that we're going to do is start to build the masala. The biryani masala is pretty simple here. I toast each one of these individually sometimes, or I'll toast them together. Note, if you're toasting together, it goes quicker. We had dagad ful, or blackstone flour, mace. We have shahi jira. We have sauf, or fennel, Indian bay leaf. We have coriander seed. We have cinnamon, star anise. We have black pepper. We have elaichi, both black and green. And we have some clove in there as well. So I want to be protective of these a little bit because these spices cook at different intervals. What I'm doing here is actually just a very light toast. If I was going to toast these spices for another masala, I would probably toast them individually. For this, I'm just looking on a nice light toast. That'll release the aromatics. This is what it looks like together. And then I'm going to take a NutriBullet, which I use, just a portable blender, and I'm going to start to blend these. And basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to blend this all together until it is a nice fine powder. Note that when you're doing something like this, it's going to continue to release friction, and that friction releases heat, and that'll continue to break down the spice. So anytime I'm using a masala blend for that day, I will do it in this. If I was going to store a masala blend, a mortar and pestle is much better as it creates much less friction. But this is the biryani masala that I'm going to use to marinate the chicken that I'm using. It's going to go in the yakni, which I'll explain here in a couple minutes. But that's the beautiful masala powder. Really easy, simple to do. And next it's time to start to get my chicken into its marinade. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. You can do it overnight, or you can do it for 30 minutes to 4 hours. And I'll explain why there's such a difference in a minute. But typically, I'm going to take hung yogurt, hung curd. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to whisk it a little bit, just with that back of the spoon to get a little bit of it kind of broken down. Into this, I add haldi, or turmeric powder. And then I'm going to add that beautiful biryani masala to this, which is, really an important step. The other thing I like to add into this marinade for the yakni is green chili. I will just dice these up pretty fine and work that into that yogurt mixture. We want that heat. As we're doing this, I talked a little bit about why there's a discrepancy in how much time. If you read Masala Lab, by Krisha Shook. He goes into the science of marination, and brilliant author, brilliant book. I highly recommend it. I'll link it if I can here so that you guys can purchase it. He talks about how yogurt breaks down proteins, and he says really it's about a 30-minute process. Anything over is kind of overkill. But remember, yogurt is used to kind of break that down and to really make a nice, impart that nice flavor there. I'm also going to chop up, as you see here, some coriander. I'm going to put that into this mixture. A little bit of mint as well. I put into this mixture. A little bit of salt. What I'm looking for here is really to create that backbone of flavors that are going to marinate. And to this chicken, when I add this all together to make that yakni, I only end up marinating it for about 2 hours. That was the right move for me there. So in goes the mint, as you see there. That extra mint I put into the coriander that I have left over. And then always wipe your board and reset. I wash and wipe my board between that. Here comes that beautiful biryani masala that we made. It is fragrant and delicious. There's our salt. I add a little bit of lemon juice to this as well. That's Kashmiri chili powder. And I want to mix this really, really good. The other thing that I like to do with this is we want to keep this a little bit looser. So I will add some of the hot rice water if I'm boiling my rice at this point. If you don't have that, a little hot water will help. And in comes some of the brista that we made. This also gets put into the marinade that we call kind of the yakni, which really is that marinade for the chicken. This was taught to me by a wonderful Hyderabadi chef. What you saw there is a little bit of that onion-infused ghee that goes in there, again, to help break it up, and you'll see a little bit of water. That's that hot water. And again, we're just looking for this to have a consistency like that. That's basically where we want to be. And now we're going to finish up some chicken here. Whenever you're scoring chicken for this, you want to make deep gashes into the chicken without cutting through. This helps impart that marinade deep into the chicken. This is something you see in kebab culture. You'll see it in a lot of different applications for Indian food, specifically when it comes to, things like this. Those gashes are indicative of getting that spice mixture in there. With this, we really, really want to impart all of that beautiful flavor. I will slightly trim out a lot of that chicken. If there's an excess amount of fat or anything, or sinew, I'll kind of take that out. But for the most part, I really like a lot of that flavor to impart there. But the gashes are very important into marinating this chicken. I washed my board previously, wiped it of any excess water, and washed my hands before this clean. There's nothing like this. Like, this is an important step. You really want to massage all of this yakni, this beautiful kind of marinade that we've made into the chicken. I scrape down the edges of this constantly, and I want to create a flat surface here after I've massaged this for about 2 to 3 minutes, really making sure that it's well kind of marinated and mixed in. And I'm going to place this in the fridge. For me, like I said, it was about 2 hours, but that's what the yakni looks like. Really simple. It is absolutely packed with flavor. Next, and if you're watching this video, you know this part all too well. This is washing rice. Washing rice is a quintessential part of cooking rice. I have a lot of memories when I first started learning of Indra telling me to wash rice. So this is a painstaking process at times. It took me, I believe it was about 9 washes. And what we're looking for here is we're looking for the water to start to run clear. Now, if I was going to cook just basmati rice for just a side dish, I would soak this rice for, 15 to 30 minutes. When I'm making biryani, since rice cooks in stages in biryani, which we'll get into, all I want to do here is massage this rice without soaking it. All I want to do is get a lot of that starch off, keep washing the rice until it runs relatively clear, and that's all I do. I don't need to soak this rice. I've made many mistakes in my career of over soaking basmati rice, and it breaks. It's a humbling lesson that I've painstakingly learned. So with biryani, I don't soak the rice. I actually just wash it until the water is clear. Now, one of the important factors is when you're making biryani, the rice that you first put in its first layer is going to it's going to need to be a little bit more al dente or a little bit under in comparison to the rice on the top. The reason is a lot of the heat of the biryani goes from the top and circulates around the biryani. This is the dum style, right, where it's steam. We're really creating the breath of what this dish is and the flavor. So wash your rice thoroughly. Do not skip the step. Wash it in cold water, not hot water. We don't want to release anything except, getting off a lot of the excess starch to this. But as you see, it's a lot of steps, right? And now you see the waters are nice and clear. This is really what we're looking for. There's still a little bit of fuzz to it, but that right here, look at this. This is really where I want the rice to be before I start cooking it. Now, the next thing that I do is I create a little satchel of spices. These are the spices that typically go into the water for the rice. Now, why am I doing it this way? Well, this is just a little refined technique. The reason I do this is so that I don't have to pick out the spices. A lot of times it's challenging for Westerners when they're eating biryani to bite into a big piece of clove or elaichi. So what I do is I actually soak them right here like this. I'll add the mint and I will add the cilantro to this. I will reserve some of this as well. So if you could see my pot, I still have a little bit more. Also add a little bit of rose water. This kind of accentuates a lot of that perfumey nature. And of course, quebrada. Quebrada is this wonderful scent that is one of my favorite things. It's really the essence of the screw pine when you kind of look it up. But ideally, it's a gorgeous flavor that you see in a lot of mitai or Indian sweets. This is basically a mitar etar, which is kind of translates to perfume, and I apologize for my pronunciations. Some of them are challenging. I'll add a little bit, and I mean a little bit of this to the pot. This is a big amount of biryani. I'm serving about 6 people for this portion. And so that's how I start my rice. And a little bit of salt goes in that as well. Now, I kind of want to add a little bit more masala and a little bit more coriander or cilantro to my marinade. It's been resting for about 2 hours, and now I just want to bring it back to life just a little bit more there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building this biryani. So in goes a little bit of that beautiful ghee that was infused with onion. You can see that pot. I'm going to do the base layer here. Another way that you can do this is a little bit of rice down on the bottom that's par cooked. I'm fine doing it with this because we have that beautiful layer kind of down on the bottom to cook. And I want to get this nice and flat. You'll see me kind of pat this down a bit. I want to do this because I want a nice even layer. To that, little bit of the cilantro and mint goes in there. And that's another way to start building those flavors. And then in goes the brista. And I want to break that up and put it nice and even. I can't explain how important this step is, how important brista is. The Hydrabadi biryani, it is absolutely an essential part, and a good brista makes a very good biryani. So don't skimp on that. Now with this rice, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the first stage to be about, I'd say about 50% cooked, somewhere in the realm of 40 to 50% cooked. It means the edges of the rice will be a little opaque while the middle will still be quite white. And I'm going to take that at that point, and I'm really looking to check this rice here to see what stage it's at. I know I need another 30 seconds tops, maybe 60 if I'm really pushing it, until that first stage of rice is done. When you're building biryani, every layer has a different stage of rice. So now that I know the first stage is ready, I kind of flick your wrist a bit to really spread this rice out. And again, I'm looking to pat down this layer loosely. And that's our first stage of rice. That rice is going to continue to cook, and it's closer to the bottom, so it's going to receive more heat. So I know that even though that rice is under, it's going to be fine by the time the biryani is done. In goes another layer of brista, in goes another layer of mint and cilantro, and then another layer of rice. Now this rice is about 60 to 70% cooked. And again, I'm not worried about my rice here. I'm not worried about it cooking. It's like once you have the stages down, you will have perfect biryani here. So I'm going to continue to do that. Now my water is off. The heat is off on the pot on the left where the rice is. It's going to continue to cook while it's still in that water. So I'm going to even this out, keep adding all the way to the top until I have my last layer of rice. And to that, I want to add the rest of my brista. I want to add the rest of my coriander or cilantro and mint. I like a nice layer on here, and then you're going to see me add a little bit of hot water and saffron. That right there is another scoop or two of oil. That ghee that we saved for making the brista, I love that on there. It's a beautiful, beautiful flavor. But the final stage is really that saffron. Now, some people do it in milk, some people do it in hot water. Hydrabadi chef taught me in hot water, so I do it that way. I've done it in milk as well. It's just the way that I like to do it. And I have somebody who's gluten-free here today. So instead of wrapping this in dough, I chose to wrap it in tin foil. This is a heavy-duty aluminum foil, and you see me pinch every single solitary side. I'm looking for a very good seal. And since this is a very heavy-duty pot, I know the cover is going to weigh it down quite a bit. But really, you want a nice tight seal. Traditionally, this is done with atta dough. Now, I put this on medium for about 6 minutes, turn it down to a very low for at least 45 minutes. And when I insert the palta, that spatula, I'm looking for any water content in that. I saw none, so I know it's all set. So now I start to toss the biryani here. Hope you guys enjoyed this beautiful biryani, and thank you so much for 50,000 subscribers.